This conference will now be recorded.
Welcome to Apex Learning. I'm going to walk through the teacher role inside of Apex courses. We'll cover how to get Apex set up, what students see, what teachers see. First, when you log in, everybody will go to www.apexvs.com. You'll enter a username and a password. Initially, everybody gets a temporary password and will be prompted to create a permanent password. Several districts will have a batch import. So while I will show you how to add students and staff, our tech team will work with yours, and that may be done with a batch import. I'm looking today at Apex courses, looking at my dashboard as a teacher. But first, when I click on menu, I've got several items down below that I think of as getting started. And then from my dashboard, it's how do I manage and monitor student progress? First, for staff, I would click in the upper right-hand corner, add staff, first name, last name, email, and username. Usernames need to be unique. If you select one that's already taken, Apex will prompt you to select another one. And like I say, this may be done with a batch import from your tech staff. For menu and students, same thing. Add a student from the upper right-hand corner, first name, last name, username, and also a unique username. Apex will automatically generate a temporary password. As I said, when you log in or your students log in, they'll be prompted to create a permanent password. We'll spend a little bit more time on creating classrooms. So menu and classrooms. Your solution will be courses. I'm going to add a classroom from the upper right-hand corner. I'm going to select a classroom name, and I think of this as the sign outside the door of the classroom. So I'm going to call this Dennis Chemistry. I'm going down to my online or my digital catalog. We have different pathways that Apex terms them. AP courses, core courses are those that typically think of for first-time credit. We have some foundations, which are remedial level courses, honors courses, and prescriptive. The prescriptive courses are typically used for credit recovery. All of the Apex's courses, and we'll see this in a few minutes, are set up with units, lessons, and activities. The prescriptive pathway includes unit level pretests where you set the threshold where students may exempt from some of the content. I'm going to create a chemistry prescriptive semester 1 classroom. I select the content. I've already put my sign outside the door and I click save. Now I need to put teachers in the classroom. I'm already enrolled because I created the classroom. At Apex, it doesn't matter how many teachers are associated with the classroom, but in order to see the grade book, which we'll look at in a little while, a teacher needs to be enrolled in the classroom. We would select students to put into the classroom, as many students as we need to. And then we have a classroom configuration, and this is settings that we have. I call them parameters around the classroom that you'll set for that particular classroom. Typically, districts identify default type settings that they have. Mastery-based learning. I mentioned that our courses are structured by units, lessons, and activities. If we enforce mastery-based learning at some percentage, then students have to achieve that percentage on activity A before they go to activity B. There are ways for the teacher to override this in the gradebook, and we'll talk about that when we do the managing and monitoring student progress. Apex will allow students up to 3 attempts at a test. A default setting, typically we see closed book where the students cannot go back into the Apex content while they're doing the assessments. We automatically randomize question order. At the high school level, most of our quizzes are 10 questions with 3 versions of each. At the middle school level, typically 5 questions with 2 versions of each. And we'll also randomize the answer choices when the students take the assessments. We'll automatically give feedback to students on how they performed on the assessments. You can see on the question feedback and answer review, it's what level of feedback do they get. Pretest settings identify what threshold students need to achieve on that unit level pretest in order to exempt out of some of the content inside of that unit. Typically, the test out level is set at or higher than the mastery base level. That's how we set up classrooms. So the setup now that we've talked about, we have staff that we've added, students that are added, and again, those may be a batch import by your tech team. And then we can add classrooms. You'll see from my dashboard, now I'm going to go to menu and my dashboard. This is where I'm going to see all of the classrooms for which I am a teacher. I just created the chemistry, dentist chemistry. So we're actually going to walk through that one. When I click on the classroom name, I expand the classroom. Over on the far right-hand side, I can edit the classroom. That's typically done to either enroll or withdraw students. We've got reports, viewing data. We represent the data in a number of different ways in different reports. Most of this discussion will center around the activities or the summary page of the grade book that we look at when we manage and monitor progress. The reports display that gradebook data in a number of different ways. But first, I want to launch the product. I want you to show what an Apex course looks like, what I mean by that unit lesson activity or ULA structure. As a teacher, you have the ability to preview the content simply by selecting on the course name underneath the classroom name. Here's the structure of the units. The last unit is always the end of course test, and students can access those either by this gray circle or by the picture. One thing to point out is that if you do select mastery-based learning, students will see items grayed out for which they've not yet achieved mastery. We're going to launch into Unit 1. At the unit level, we have an overview. What are the objectives that we're going to do in Unit 1? If we select a prescriptive course, then the students will see a pretest for that particular unit. And then from Unit 1, we go into Lesson 1. Inside Lesson 1, just like we do at the unit level, we have the objectives or the overview for that particular lesson. Study is where we want students to live. This is the on-screen instruction. In this particular lesson, we have 17 pages that the students will view. Students simply start that, and we'll walk through each of the 17 pages. I want to point out that there are supports that are built in throughout the Apex content. On the first page of study is going to be a study guide. Students can click on that and it will open up a printable document that will, what I call guided note-taking. It's not a practice test, but if students complete the study guide, it will prepare them for the assessments that follow. As teacher, you have the ability to see the answers or suggested answers, rubrics for different activities. I want to point out also in the upper right-hand corner, and this is particularly for the students, we have an icon for text-to-speech that will read the content or the text of the page. We also have an icon for translation tool so that the Apex content can be translated into 30 different languages. So those are opt-in tools for the students to use. Going back outside of the study guide, back into the content, here I go through page 1, and you'll see, like say in orange on the right-hand side, different support tools that are available for the students. And on almost every page inside of Apex, there's some way for the students to engage or interact with the content. In bold letters, we've got key terms, as we know that sometimes vocabulary is a hurdle for students as they work through courses. We have maybe short little videos. In math, we'll have some practice problems. There may be some true and false or some matching types of activities. There are some interactive types of graphs, some questions, simple questions based on the content. So different ways that the students can engage with the content on almost every page. That's the study portion. And like I say, that's where we want the students to live. That's our on-screen content. Next, the students would go to see a quiz. This is a high school course, so it's 10 questions. The first page is the directions, and then the second page launches the quiz. As I mentioned, for students, we will randomize the question order so that it's highly unlikely that a student or even a group of students would see an identical quiz. As a teacher, you have the ability to preview the quiz and even to see the answers. In this particular one, then we launch into another study and another quiz. In one of the activities, we have different types of activities. We've got a journal here in this chemistry course. It's a writing assignment associated with the nature of science. Once the student finishes lesson 1, they'll go to lesson 2. Again, study, quiz. This one includes a practice activity, which is like graded homework. There is a combination of computer scored and teacher scored activities inside of Apex, and we'll look at those a little bit more when we launch into the grade book and look at managing and monitoring progress. The idea right now is for you to see how the unit lesson activity structure is set. As soon as lesson 2 is done, student goes to lesson 3. This time we introduce lab and discussion board activities. Then I go to lesson 4, and lesson 4 is the last lesson inside of unit 1. We've got an overview, we've got a review. CST is computer scored test, TST is teacher scored test. And you'll decide which one or both of those that the students should take. Unit 1 is completed, and then the student would launch into Unit 2. So that is the structure, excuse me, of Apex courses. The next, and all of the courses are set up with that unit lesson activity structure. The activities vary, the number of pages of study vary, but everything is set up with that ULA. I want to launch into the grade book now for managing or monitoring progress. And again, as a teacher, I'm on menu and my dashboard, and I'm looking at the classroom called Dentist Chemistry, and I'm going to click on the grade book. When we launch the grade book, the first thing that we start with is the summary page of the grade book. Clearly, I just created this classroom, so we don't have any student performance yet, but this will show the percentages, how the student is doing throughout the course, units 1 through 6. One of the things that I'd like to point out first is that when inside the gradebook, when you click on the student's name, we bring up what we call an activity scores report. I think of this as a traditional gradebook that will become populated as the students complete the work. And it's important to note that the students also can retrieve their gradebook from their dashboard as well. Besides recording student progress at each individual unit, we have some data in the middle section of that summary page. And as I said earlier, that most of the reports, or a number of the reports that we have, are a function of these kinds of reports. Overdue activities, you have the option as a teacher to set a pacing guide for students. Apex calls it due dates, and so the pacing guide, or the pace, will be set for the students so that they and you know where they are in terms of keeping on track. Days since last access is pretty straightforward. On schedule percent is a function of overdue activities if you set that. If I've got 10 activities due in a month, but I've only completed 5 of them, my on schedule percent will be 50%. Quality of work is the average score that students have for the work that they've completed. In my previous example, if I've taken 5 assessments and I've scored an average of 90%, my quality of work will be 90%. Grade to date becomes a progress report. It's quality of work times on schedule percent. So in my example, because I've set due dates, I've been on schedule 50% because I completed 5 out of 10 assignments. My quality of work is 90%, is high. My grade to date then would be 45%, 90% times 50%. And this then is a progress report. How many points have I earned against how many points are available until now? The overall percent is a total number of points that I've earned versus total number of points available in the course. That's the example that I use. This is the grade that I use if I have to give you a grade now. One of the things that we want you to do with Apex, make sure that you do, is on the summary page of the grade report, is to include the final grade, because that completes the student in that classroom and it withdraws them from the classroom. It helps to keep the classroom rosters accurate. That's the summary page of the gradebook. Now we're going to go into Unit 1. I'm not going to look at all 6 of the units, but inside of Unit 1, now we're looking at the specific activities that the students have done and how well they've completed the work. One of the things that you can do is click on the hyperlink for any of the activities, and that will take you straight to that activity in the lesson, in the study, or in the course. Several different icons that we have here. We can lock and unlock activities. We call them proctored or non-proctored. We can exclude activities. For instance, if there's a teacher scored test and a computer scored test, we may elect not to include the teacher scored test. Or we may choose not to include a discussion board. And so we can exclude those activities from the gradebook. The students still see the content, but we're not going to count that in the gradebook. You'll see a calendar icon, and this is where we can create due dates. This is that pacing guide. I can set the initial date that the activity is due, and then I can cascade due dates and select the end date for the course. When I save those changes, we will have created a pacing guide for the student. Another thing that you see here, we see a combination of dashes and rectangles. The rectangles inside of the gradebook indicate that that is a teacher-scored activity. Once we move on from the gradebook, I want to look a little bit at reports. So I'm going to go to the View Data icon, and there's a number of different reports that are available. Down at the bottom will be the active students for that course, and you'll see one representation of a lot of the activities that are associated with that summary page of the gradebook. When I click on the student's name, it will bring up all of their courses and the amount of time that they've spent in the courses. In my chemistry course, we don't have anything set up there because I haven't done any work yet as the student. There's a number of different reports that are available. So the next thing that I want to do is point out ways to find data that may be outside of the summary page of the gradebook. When I go to the Help tab, got a number of different resources available for teachers. First, I want to point out Educator Academy. This is Apex's online, on-demand review of basic features and functionality of Apex courses. I've highlighted some of the items here. This is about a 90-minute course, 12 different modules that will cover the basic features and functionality. I would encourage all staff to go through Educator Academy. It's structured well, but it also then can serve as a reference tool as you navigate Apex. We have getting started opportunities. There is a getting started for students. They have a 6-minute video on how to navigate their dashboard. And we have a staff getting started page with some documents, again, that will review some of the items that I've talked about here today. Other things associated with help. If I go to Help Home, we have a tab called Curriculum Resources. And on here, we've got course guides where you can see what is covered in each of the courses. The last thing that I want to point out in help is help with this page. So for instance, if you're a teacher and working and looking at the gradebook and you have questions about the gradebook, if you click on help with this page, it will take you to topics associated with the gradebook. This has been a very quick introduction to the structure of Apex Learning courses. We are here to support you along the way. Please be sure to reach out to your site coordinator or to your success manager with additional questions.